Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's your boy SoSo, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys for joining us as always. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and, more importantly, hit that notification button. That way, you guys get notified when we drop the hits just like this. On this episode, Joel and I are breaking down the Heat's off-season movement or lack thereof as they get ready to head into the regular season for next year. It's your boy So. Let's go. Man, my brother, what's going on, dog? It's good to see you.
Good to see you, brother. It's been a while. It's been at least a week.
Yes. It's been like closer to 2 weeks, really, realistically, right? Because the last episode we did, 193, was about 12 days ago. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? When we linked up, we were
Took a little
celebrating.
break
We
for
were
the
celebrating
holidays.
the Panthers championship. BKFC 62 went down. You know what I mean? Like we broke it down that episode for sure. But there's one thing that we didn't talk about on that last episode that we really didn't dive deep into because we needed some time to see what the moves were going to be, and that's for the Heat. And I don't know about you, Doc, but this whole time that I was out there in California and I'm checking Heat Twitter, I'm checking all the updates, and I see everybody else signing big name players except for the Heat. And then the guys that we do get is like, really? Another guard? And if you haven't been keeping up, man, this is what the Heat's current situation is looking like after we have already made some moves. And I don't know about you, man, but I'm not feeling a lot of them.
All right.
Because if we got to look at the squad, right, and say, all right, when we last looked at the Heat, what did they need, right? And you and I pretty much agreed that they needed more firepower. When you look at that starting five, I don't know if you see firepower, Doc, but I don't.
I mean, it's the same old team, the same team from not even the same team from a couple years ago when we made it to the finals, but it's the same team from last year that got knocked out in the first round.
Right.
And less pieces. We just lost a couple pieces. We lost what's his face? I don't even remember.
Caleb. We lost
Caleb to the Sixers,
Mhm.
in conference rival. Who else? Do we lose another piece there? Looks like we pretty much have everybody intact.
We lost but nobody. Caleb was probably the most prominent name,
Drew
right?
Smith, another
Drew
bench
Smith,
guy,
he
like
bounced.
10-day guy, two-way guy, whatever. But we haven't really
Orlando
done.
Robinson, he left too, but like you said, they're not guys that are of importance like that, right?
Yeah, when we're seeing like Paul George, going and signing with the Sixers, and then you got DeMar DeRozan, and you got all these other guys that like were in the free agent window, and we're just not signing anybody once again. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah, and it bothers me, dog, that this is the five that we're running with, right? Not because this five is really bad or anything like that, but it's the same five that we saw last year, pretty much with the exception of Hawkins, right, being added in there. Um, you know, Terry Rozier, we got him mid-season, right? We'll start at the very top. We got him mid-season. There wasn't a lot that he could try to do, right, in terms of scoring because he was going to have to find a way to fit into the offense. As the season progressed, right, and it ended, he did find his groove or his place in the offense and was able to put up some good performances, albeit at a shooter's clip, right? Not necessarily anything over 50%, but he played well enough to solidify why we traded for his potential, right? But then he had that injury, took him out of the playoffs, kind of hurt us, right? Because we were lacking in that position, hardcore, and it just showed the need for a big upgrade in that point guard area, and we didn't go after any of the names, or we couldn't go after any of the names that would have been there. Another interesting one is Tyler Hero, right? Because a lot of people were expecting him to be a part of a big trade that brought in a superstar, right? There were a lot of talks about the Rosen, right, being one of the guys that the Heat were targeting and going after. But in reality, I think that the Heat are kind of forced to stick with Hero, right? Because the amount of money he's making and the fact that he doesn't have too much trade value right now. In our eyes, he has a ton of trade value, but if we're talking about the market and what's available for a guy who doesn't shoot that well, from the free throw line, has very streaky offensive performances and is making $29 million a year, not a lot of ways you're going to be able to trade for that guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we're at like a stalemate with this guy now because it's like we know he still has potential. He probably still hasn't reached it or tapped into his full potential. But at the same time, it's like how much longer are we going to keep waiting around? For Tyler Hero to become the man?
And even like the combination of Terry Rozier and Hero, right? Both of those guys are shooters. Both of those guys can get hot from the 3 point line, and both of those guys are offensively minded, right? When it comes to what their game is about. I would like to see how that backcourt plays out, but it kind of leaves something to be desired because neither one of those guys have been known for creating offense. And I feel like in the position that we're in, right, and we'll check the rest of the roster out right now, but we have so many guards that are necessary, not necessarily guys who create offense for other people. They can create offense for themselves, go off the dribble, go one on one or something like that. But they're not guys who can say, you know what, I'm going to set up this guy, I'm going to set up that guy, and we're going to get 12 assists a game, 10 assists, 9 assists a game.
I mean, talking about a guy that we missed out on once again, Donovan Mitchell, a guy
Yep.
that, I was big on, a lot of people were big on, to come here, fits that point guard role, for us at least, if he would have came here and re-signed with Cleveland, so Cleveland continues to get stronger. Philadelphia getting stronger. The New York Knicks, or the Villanova Knicks, as they're calling them, they're getting stronger. The Celtics, we saw what they just did. They're coming off a championship season, and once again, here we are, not making any moves, man. There's got to be something positive out of all of this, right? So,
I mean, the only positivity is that you hope that Jimmy Butler comes back, right, as the centerpiece and becomes more motivated than ever to be a success in the regular season, right? Because if we're talking about what does this team need in order for it to be a successful offensive talent, a successful playoff contending team, we're talking about Jimmy Butler playing at his best, right? And if we're talking about Jimmy Butler playing at his best, he's going to have to play more games than not because we're not going to have that luxury of trying to make it to the fourth seed. The way that this roster is looking right now, especially with this starting five, I'm not trying to be like Debbie Downer or anything like that, but it doesn't scream top four in the East to me, right? It doesn't scream, hey, this team is going to go after the Celtics next year and try to push them for that spot in the finals, right? And it starts with Jimmy Butler and what type of Jimmy Butler do we get during the regular season in order to position us at least in the best position to make a run in the playoffs instead of doing what we've done in the past 2 years, which is struggle to make the playoffs and then try to make a run once we're trying to getting into the playoffs.
we definitely need more than what we have right now, especially on paper, dog. Who else is out there though? So, like, what other moves are yet to be made that we can potentially even make if there are any to be made?
I mean, there's a couple of guys out there, right? Tyrese Jones is still out there. There's a couple of guys out there that are available, right? There's this other dude that his name is escaping me right now. But yeah, it's not guys that would necessarily say, "Wow, now the Heat are a contender." Now the Heat are a team that are like really about that business where they're going to be able to go out there and beat whoever they face up, in anything. So key names would be like a Gary Trent Jr., right? Precious, who's a guy that the Heat drafted. Tyus Jones, like I mentioned, there's just not a lot out there that we could say go after and we'll be happy with, right? And the worst case about it is that people are pointing to the Heat culture and saying, well, look at how good it's going with Jaime Jaquez. Why can't that be the same with any guys that we drafted? And it's not to say that they won't, but Jaquez has an advantage on a lot of rookies coming in at 23, 24 years old, right? So he came in pretty much ready to contribute, extremely mature, extremely knowledgeable in basketball in sense of movement, positioning, how to run plays and stuff like that. So between Jaquez and Butler, yeah, we got a good forward setup to start, but it's not nothing that knocks your sock off because we haven't seen the offensive explosion from Jaquez yet.
Well, now you're touching on Jaquez, and his rookie year and what he was able to do. I can't help but talk about the guy that we drafted this year. In Ware and what he's been doing so far in the summer league. Obviously we want the big name, we want the star power, we want somebody that we know can come in and immediately make a difference. But it seems like we've been adding pieces little by little. Jaquez being the most recent one, or that's until we drafted Ware and he started going off in the summer league. Have you seen any of his action, and what are your thoughts on his
I
play?
did see, I did watch him. He had that 26-point performance the other day in the Heat's win. I'm interested to see what he does against bigger forwards like the Lakers on Wednesday night, just to see what he can do as far as being a real defensive-minded center who can run the floor and hit shots. Those things are rare now in the NBA, right? And if you have a guy like him, then that can do that, I think that's an excellent backup to a guy like Bam, because there are so many times where, again, I've beaten this drum a million times that my arms are tired, but where Bam needs a guy who's bigger than Bam is, who can really take on the center that we're facing and give that guy a real problem defensively, right? Bam just takes too much energy. Yeah, he can do it, but that means that we got nothing else, right? And we saw that against the Celtics. Yeah, he was doing a great job against Tatum, but he couldn't do anything else offensively because he was just so tired, right, from doing a great defensive work. Bam is an interesting guy in this lineup, right? I do like what he had done with Khalil Ware, right? And I think he is going to be able to contribute, but what we really need to see is the jump of Bam, right? Because if you look at this team, you're like, all right, we have a star in Jimmy Butler, not a superstar, but we have a star, a big star in Jimmy Butler. When it's the playoffs and something's on the line, he can turn into a superstar. But we need a superstar during the regular season, right? Where's the guy who's going to average 25, 30 points a game and really go out there every night and be an offensive force? That's what we've been expecting from Bam. We've been expecting him to get better with the 3-point shot, expecting him to do more against other opponents who are not as defensively gifted as he is, right? And just take the opportunities that are given to him and not necessarily rely on Hero, Duncan, Jimmy, just take over games. And if he can't do that for the Heat, then I don't know how we can really compete with these other teams for a top 4 position, because we need one of these guys to turn into a superstar. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we absolutely do, bro. We're it feels like we're getting left behind. There might be a master plan. I don't know, something's been in the works, or they must know something we don't. But it just seems like 2 years in a row we're getting left behind by the rest of the conference and the rest of the league.
And the worst part about it, Joel, is that we're probably getting more handcuffed as time goes on, right? Because we're getting into these contracts with guys who don't necessarily break the mold, but we have to pay them market value, and that hinders us from being available to make other moves, right? That's one of the things that I keep hearing on podcasts and a lot of these experts, man. The Heat, it's not a lack of want from the Heat as far as not making moves, it's just a lack of ability. We really don't have that option where we can go out there, right, and make a trade, because we don't have the money. We don't have the money to make a trade. And it's just, if you don't have the right way to play in this type of NBA system right now, right, and juggle that type of salary cap Olympics, right, or gymnastics, like you have to be able to play that game. And the Heat have always tried to get the guy who's disgruntled at a cheaper rate, find talent through the draft, find guys that are undrafted rookies and turn them into something, guys from the streets, like always trying to find the cheaper ways possible. And they pointed it out today on Twitter. I don't know if you saw this tweet from Barry Jackson, but he said Brian Goins, right, who's this like super guy when it comes to the salary cap and how they work, right? He noted this: by giving Alonzo Highsmith significantly more money than he was offered elsewhere today, they have removed any chance to add a 15th player if a good free agent is still available in August, like Kelly Oubre was last year. Now the Heat are not prohibited by league rules from doing that, even for an undrafted rookie. So we're so hindered that this is the squad. These 14 players are the squad that we're running with, no matter what. Now he went on to say that he didn't blame the Heat in any sense, because they could have never really compared what Highsmith was getting offered somewhere else. But if we're talking about spending money wisely, right? You don't offer Caleb the max that he could have gotten. His agent fumbled that deal, right, and didn't take the deal from the Heat, went with the cheaper option with Philadelphia. But how are you letting those negotiations get to that point where you're outbidding somebody for a player that you would really want to keep versus somebody who you're kind of forced to keep because you don't know what else to offer him? And now we're tied into a guy for 2 years that is not going to have the opportunity realistically to go out there and shine, right? Because as much as he helped out last year, he never really broke out the mold either, right? We're like, wow, we need to give this guy 20 minutes a game at the very least. Hawkins did that. Jovic started to get to that point where it was like, all right, we got to see this guy keep rising. But yeah, man, I think the Heat are just stuck in a real bad position, and we're relying on quote unquote culture, right, to get us through it. And I don't know if that's enough, because it doesn't seem to be enough to bring anybody in.
I
Let me
mean,
tell you something. My bad to cut you off, but I was going to say
very good.
this. One of the biggest things that I think that is happening right now within Heat culture is the overvalue. We are overvaluing our players, and that starts from the very top all the way to the very bottom. All we're talking about Jimmy, we're talking about Bam, we're talking about Tyler, we're talking about Jovic, we're talking about Jaquez. Any guy, Caleb Martin, any of these guys that you want to point at that are on the Heat roster, the Heat are overvaluing these players, and the proof is in the pudding because teams aren't wanting to take those contracts back. They don't want their players back, and that just shows me and the rest of the Heat Nation, right, that these guys are not as good or as valuable as we think they are.
So what has to change? I mean, where does this go? Are we just going to have another couple of subpar years, or is something going to change?
I mean, Joel, look, let's flip it back to that other screen because right now the Heat are in the tax bracket already, right? We're at 187 million dollars on the salary cap, right? And if you just look at the starting five, that starting five does not scream 187 M's, but it does, right? It doesn't. It just does. And now we're in the first apron for the tax, right? Where we got to pay what 170 million for that. For the taxes of 100. The salary cap is 170 million. I think the first apron is 178, so we're already over that, over $7 million, without the ability to take on any more contracts realistically. Who's gonna want to take Jimmy Butler at 48 mils this year? Who's gonna want to take Bam at 35 and sign him into and keep him in that extension? Maybe some teams will because he's cost effective, but that means that Bam won't be the best player on that team. He'll probably end up being the third best player on that team, right? Like I mentioned earlier, Tyler Hero making $29 million a year this year, 31 the following year, 33 the following year. That's a lot of money for a guy who doesn't produce at a $30 million clip, right? Same thing with Terry Rozier, man. He's making 24 this year, 26 next year. And it's not that, oh, he's not worth that money. That's not what I mean at all. I'm talking about if we're looking at the money that is being spent, right? And we're looking at the salary and the draft assets and what we can do, we don't have a lot of room to work with. And that is why this roster is constructed as it is. You know what I mean? Alex Burks was a move that we made. Did that even like make a like
Who?
exactly? You know what I mean? Another guard. We have Josh Richardson coming back. Another guard. Highsmith was re-signed. Another small guard slash forward. We have Duncan, who's a guard slash forward. You know what I mean? Like we're in a real tough spot right now. And the only thing that we could hope for is that the last two draft picks, Hawkes and Ware, really go out there and exceed expectations as in terms of points and defensive responsibilities, right? Because Hawkes now can't just come into a starting lineup and say, all right, I'm still going to give you guys just 10 points a game. Sorry. Now your new threshold is 16 points a game, every game. You know what I mean? And we're gonna need those 20-point games every other 4 or 5 days. And that's just the reality of the situation because the scoring is not there for the Heat. There's no scoring on this team, and we're stuck with the guys that we have. It's only gonna get worse from here.
That just
If you
means
look,
one thing: they got to step it up. They all got to collectively step it up. I mean, every criticism, Jimmy's got to stay healthy. Bam's got to score. The Hero's got to make better decisions. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody's got to step up.
even Pat Riley and even Mick and Harrison, and all those guys involved, we have to find a way to get out of this cash because this team is not good enough to reflect that amount of money. It's just not. There's a reason why the Knicks went all in, right, and re-signed all their guys and made all these trades because they feel like they're close to a championship. There's a reason why the Celtics gave, what's this dude's name, Tatum, 74 M's. You know what I mean, per year because this guy is getting them close to championships year in year
That's
out.
what I don't understand, dog. Like how do the Celtics have $200-300 million contracts actively on their roster, dog? And our highest paid player is Jimmy from a contract from years ago. Like
Exactly.
how do we not have money, bro? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Oh, we have the money. I'm sure the owner has the money, Joel, but we don't want to get into the tax bracket. We don't want to get into that second apron, right? Because everybody's so afraid of what it'll cost you. And those other teams, like I mentioned earlier, are closer to a championship than we are. Yeah, we've been there for, 2 out of the last 4 years or whatever, 5 years. But realistically, we had a shot at one. So we're talking about 1 and 5. Whereas these other teams, the Celtics, Milwaukee, now the Knicks, right? Like these guys are much closer to saying, hey, we can get to that 1-2 spot in the East, right? And go out there and try to get to the Eastern Conference Finals with home court advantage. We're not at that at that spot. And they're
No.
spending way more money than are because we don't want to spend the money. We want to keep the guys that we drafted, the heroes, the Bams, right? The Jaquez, the Jovic, all these guys. We want to keep these guys and develop them because it's the cheapest way to go. But the problem is that those guys aren't turning out to be the players that we thought they would be. And now we're stuck paying them the market rate because that's what the market says you got to pay these guys. And we're stuck with without the talent, but with the price tag.
Damn inflation, man.
And you asked earlier, like, oh, what's it gonna take? We're gonna have to make some hard decisions. We're gonna have to make some hard decisions, right? Because if you look at the potential of this team, we know it's not top four. Bro, if these guys make top four this year, there were a lot of injuries in the East. Either that or Bam starts scoring 30 points a game.
Yeah, or a lot of things go right for us.
A lot of things go right. Hawkins averages damn near 20 points. Hero turns into an efficient shooter. Jimmy plays 70 games. Like, that's the type of shit that'll get us into the top four, right? And truth be told, I don't think that we're there yet, right? Or that's realistic. So then we got to look at what the realistic outcome would be, right? That's anywhere between at best a 5, at worst an 8. And the really bad would be not even being close to competing for 8th seed and just trying to get into the play-in tournament. That's the worst case scenario.
I think that's the goal, bro, right now. Is like, you talk about top 4. I'm like, shit, we even have what it takes right now to be top 6, because that's where we need to be. So be out of that play-in tournament, like guarantee, like just don't even be in the conversation for that last spot or whatever. So I don't know, man. It's a good thing basketball season isn't for a few months. I get to revel in the glory that is the Florida Panthers Stanley Cup.
For sure. That's the only thing that we got really going for us, dog, because this team is going to be rough, man. This team is going to be rough. We're really only hoping on a couple of things here, right? We're hoping that Jovic turns into the guy that everybody else thinks he can be, right? Because he's such a good player. He has so many talents, so tall, and we saw it kind of emerge, but he has to get better, being defensive minded and working his way around the court. And I think with time, he'll get it, right? With the playing time, he'll get it. But Hawkins, we need to see him make that jump in the offensive category, right? We need to see him make that jump. And we need Hero to also make that jump in terms of efficiency, because those are guys that we drafted that haven't necessarily continued to level up. Bam was a guy that we got in the second round, 13 pick, whatever the hell he was, and we've continued to see him level up. Now we're at that point where we're like, hey, we want you to take a huge leap, right? We're tired of the small jumps. Give us the big jumps now, right? That's where we're at with Bam. We're Hero. We haven't seen a lot of small leaps, right? We've seen some good moments, some bad moments, but nothing really that says, all right, this guy has made a leap. Same thing with Hawkins. We're going to have to see him make a leap. We're going to have to see Jovic make a leap. My biggest concern is Jimmy Butler, honestly, because we talked about his trade value last year. Does he get traded? Does he not get traded? How much further do you go into this conversation about the extension? Do you even give him the extension? Do you wait till the season's over? Do you tell him, listen, why don't we just work, until the contract's over and we'll see how we are next year and shit? But I don't know how that situation is going to play out. I don't know how he's going to come out and be focused for this season. Like, what's his goal? What's his mentality like?
Well, I feel like he has his eyes set on LA.
He saw that shit with the purple and gold. I mean, he didn't even get, like, not that he didn't get invited. I'm sure they invited him to go work out for the USA team, but it's not something that he was being asked to do, right? And we see Hawkins out there running and gunning with those guys on Instagram, right? And Bam's out there on the squad representing for the Heat after signing his extension. But yeah, what type of Jimmy are we gonna get? That's the biggest question, right? Because he knows that there's a big contract on the line for him. It just may not be with the Heat, because I can't see the Heat saying, you know what, we're going to give you 50 M's a year.
Nah. We've seen that we don't do that, even with a guy like Dwayne Wade, right. We're just not going to do that. So.
Oh, and like I said, we're already as handicapped as we are with the salary cap. So either we're going to have to make decisions whether we take on more salary and say, you know what, give us your guys who want to get paid and give me your best players. Or do we say, all right, let the guys making cash go and let's focus on these rookies? Either way, we're stuck in a very weird position right now. If we're talking about the Heat, man, they're stuck in a tough spot. Tough spot. I don't know what the hell they're going to do.
Shit,
it sucks, man.
You're my go-to guy for this kind of stuff. So if you know nothing, I know less.
And imagine, dog, I've been saving this shit because I was like, yo, we're gonna get some type of move, right? We know that this team needs improvement. We know that this team needs to make a move. They tried a couple of times last year, it didn't work. Obviously, they're gonna be active in it, and they didn't give us anything.
No,
Anything, you know what I mean? When you're signing guys like Alex Burke, again, no disrespect to Alex Burke, but that's not making anybody down here be like, yeah, we got him. Nah, at all. Because we're looking for the big names. We're looking for the home run. We're trying to get back to that top three status, right? We're trying to get back to that heroes status where teams hated us. The national media hated us because of the much as much talent as we want. Now we're walking around with this squad saying, "Oh, well we made 4 final runs in 5, whatever." But you guys suck. And every time you guys got there, it was a struggle for you guys to get there, and you guys barely got there. And when you get there, you get your ass kicked by a much better team.
damn, tough love.
Dog, hey, it is what it is, dog. I get tired of defending these guys, right? Because I gotta obviously people know we love the Heat down here, right? And we got a lot of fans outside here that love basketball that not are they aren't necessarily Heat fans, but they love basketball and they rep their teams, and they're always asking us, they're always asking for the opinion, and I always tell them the same shit. It's like the Heat haven't been the same since that era, right? Because now we are at that level where the standard is so high, right? As far as what the fans expect, as with moves being made to be at that championship level, that when we got Jimmy, it was like, all right, we're going to continue to spend money and add to these pieces. We haven't at all. And that's no fault of Jimmy's, right? That's no fault of Jimmy's, but we haven't done anything to support this team. We've just been reliant on the talent that has been added to the team, whether it's through undrafted signings, free agent signings, undrafted players being coached up and shit, or that we draft picks that we've gotten that we try to coach up and give them that culture, right? That's not necessarily the times that the Heat have been best historically. A lot of the times that we've been at our best is because we go out there and we swing for the grand slams, go out there, swing for the home runs, try to get 3, 4 guys that are really expensive, whatever, but we're going to go out there and make a run. Shit. When Antoine Walker came here and Lamar Odom and all, we were paying those guys good money, dog, good money. But it was like, all right, either we hit or we miss. And I think that we've already missed enough with this team. We've already missed enough with this team that we have to. I say we, but they have to find a way, right, to really make an improvement with this team. Now, the one thing that does keep me interested is like what happens during the season, right? Because you and I know there's things always change during the season, right? You get some guy that says, "Yo, I don't want to be here anymore." But who's a guy that you're like, this guy is the only guy that we would take in order for us to be a contender? It would have been
I
Dame, right?
Yeah, but he's already stated that he understands that the first year they weren't going to get much done, and he's already looking forward to this year. If they have a repeat of last year, then maybe Dame's back on the table. But we thought that Mitchell's might have been back on the table for us, and again, we don't see what happens behind the scenes, but the word on the street is that the Heat are washed.
Yeah, yeah, big time washed. And the fact that you got to look at what that he can do in the future. Guys being named like Laurie Markkinen and stuff like that. I'm like, yo, those guys don't excite me, right? I don't want to pay that guy when we already have an undersized big guy in Bam here. You know what I mean? But Brandon Ingram is another guy, but what's he gonna do for us? That's really gonna change the game. There's nothing out there, really nothing out there, because those guys that are getting paid or potential free agents, the Jalen Brunsons, the Jamal Murrays, who else is another point guard? Kyrie Irving. Like all of these guys have options to become free agents for 2025, but I don't see none of those guys being like, yo, I gotta go to the Heat or I want to go to the Heat and I'm gonna hold out for that. I don't see none of that happening.
Yeah,
None of that happening. The Heat are in a tough spot, man. The Heat are in a tough spot. Like I said, the only thing that we can hope for as far as change, quote unquote change, is getting ready for the season, seeing how this team works its way into the season, right? And how they start off in those first 30 or 40 games. And then hope that they can land some type of trade. Because if not, I think we're really heading into a 7th, 8th seed at best. At best.
Hey, good thing we got Panthers, dog.
Yeah. Now we're gonna
That's the fun.
Yeah, for sure. And now we're passing the baton to the Dolphins, right? Because if we're talking about a team that has high expectations down here in South Florida, that's team number one when it comes to high expectations because they haven't been able to get over the hump, and they've already shown that they've been able to spend money, get free agents, do this, that, and the third, but never get over that hump to say, all right, we've justified the means. And I can't wait to do the breakdown of the Dolphins because that's gonna be. I feel like that's gonna be a fucking hour-long episode on its own, dog. It's so deep. It's so deep. How many things we can cover with that team, dog?
Yeah,
Well,
we
we're gonna
haven't
have to
talked about
cover
them in a while. There's a lot of updates and stuff, and yeah, and we're gonna have to get into that
signings.
pretty soon, man. I'm excited about. I mean, obviously, I'm excited
Yeah,
about
I could tell. I could tell.
the football
And we
season
got
coming up.
some exciting changes too to OnlyFans, man. OnlyFans is gonna be a lot of fun this year, bro. A lot of fun, man. A lot of fun. Got to make sure to order extra stickers for sure for this season, though.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah. Next time you guys probably see us, we'll definitely be in person, and we'll probably be either doing an interview or breaking down one of the Dolphins' upcoming preseason games or something like that. We got mini camp starting in a couple of weeks. That's gonna be a lot of fun. And yeah, that's it, bro. Doing the same old, getting to that information out to the peoples.
You already know the dog days of summer, but we're still going hard.
Absolutely, dog. Absolutely. And if you haven't been watching entertaining sports, make sure to just keep up with the Euros and the Copa America. Now we're getting into the really fun games, right? Semifinals going down. Argentina and Canada. We got Uruguay versus who are they? Play Colombia for sure. How could I forget that? That's going to be exciting. And on the other side of the world, you got England moving on. You got France moving on. It's good games out there, bro. Good games. Good games.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, man. You guys know what to do, man. You guys gotta turn. This is the point where we tell you what to do, but you guys should already know what's gonna come next. You guys gotta tell a friend
Yes, sir. Tell a friend to tell a friend
to tell another friend
to tell everybody they know, baby.
tell everybody they know about this amazing podcast and the show that we got going on, man. Like I said, we got a lot going on. If you haven't seen that Instagram reel, we got the artist coming down from Miami. He's doing great things, big things in the world of sports. We got one of the big guys from BKFC going down. Shout out to Nelson. And we got one of the best up and comers from South Florida from BKFC coming up. He's a hell of a prospect. We saw him fight at the Miami Live event, and that shit's gonna be dope, man. So it's always good to get in with these guys before they blow up in BKFC, man. That's it. That's all I got for you guys, man. Let's get out of here. Let's get out of here. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification, man. Until next time.
Peace.